Hi and welcome back to Minnie's Miscellanies, and welcome to a reading wrap-up rather than a reading vlog this time, because pretty quickly into October I noticed I wouldn't have the time or the energy left to spare to produce a full-length vlog. Also, last time it ran to over an hour of footage, and that's a little bit, I don't know, that is a little bit too much to ask of you as viewers to come to a total newbies booktube channel and watch an over an hour long video. So it's going to be a wrap up this time. Reading wise, October has been semi-successful for me because, a lot of my reading, actually most of my reading has been assigned because I've been following master courses, because you are looking at a bachelorette right now. I have been awarded the bachelor's degree in comparative literature, I think a couple of days ago, I think this weekend, Saturday. So yeah, I've been reading a lot for my courses, not so much for my leisure time. But this is a mix and match of all of those books, and I've also left out about half the books that I've read this month because they are more of a theoretical nature, which isn't that fun to talk about. I mean, if you want to, I can. Just, I'm going to talk about the fun books this time. Right at the start of the month, I've read 2 books by Oscar Wilde. And by the way, I won't have much to hold up to you right now because I have read almost exclusively on my Kindle this month, by virtue of it just being a little bit more portable, and the rest of the books were from the library, and I have since returned them without thinking of the fact that I still want to do a reading wrap-up with them. So there's that. Back to Oscar Wilde. I have read 2 plays by him, An Ideal Husband, which has been a reread for me, and The Importance of Being Earnest, which I've read for the first time this time. I do prefer An Ideal Husband still, for the sole reason that I prefer the more realistic setting it has, rather than the Importance of Being Earnest, because the characters of The Importance of Being Earnest, they are very self-conscious, and they kind of almost know that they are characters in a social comedy. So they speak in aphorisms almost all the time, which is very funny, but I just prefer that an ideal husband has kind of a real consequence at stake that will destroy the characters' lives if they don't solve the problem first. But I think they are equally funny and equally worth reading, and I highly recommend them, as I do Oscar in general. He's just an amazing writer, and I think I'm going to read The Picture of Dorian Gray one of these beautiful days, which have been really beautiful. I mean, look outside, it's just, can't, but it's beautiful outside right now. I hope this weather holds at least 2 more days. My third book of the month was The Solitary Summer by Elizabeth von Arnim, which is a kind of sequel, but not quite, to Elizabeth and Her German Garden, which I read last month. You can see that in the reading vlog. And it is, chronologically I think it comes before, because it describes the summer that Elizabeth, the protagonist, spent, the first summer that she spent in the country house that would be kind of their permanent home in Elizabeth and Her German Garden. And a lot of what I said about Elizabeth and Her German Garden still applies here. It's pretty funny to read, it's quite charming in its garden descriptions and description of books and people, but also the criticism I levelled at it still applies here. Elizabeth is a little bit, self-righteous and haughty towards socially inferior people, and I don't think that criticism is always applicable where she levels it, and not always fair. So that were my criticisms for that book, but I liked it. I rated it 4 stars. I would recommend it, and I'm still going to read the 3rd part, if you want to call it that, because it's not really a series, it's just, thematically tied and connected books. I'm still going to read Elizabeth's Adventures in the Blüten, I think it's called. I'm gonna have to look that up, but I'm gonna read that as well. Next up, Der Sandmann by E.T.A. Hoffmann. That is a classic romantic German fairy tale, and I'm going to put that in huge quotation marks because that's not a fairy tale at all, or at least not in a sense that we understand it today. This is pretty bloody, which I liked, but this is not something to read to your children at night. This is the perverted version of the Sandmann fairy tale. The The Sandman is a figure that is supposed to get children into bed. He comes and he throws sand into children's eyes, and then children start rubbing their eyes and start getting sleepy, and that's kind of the sign that they should go into bed. The Sandman of Hoffmann is a bloodthirsty monster. He throws sand into your eyes to get them, to confuse you, and then he rips your eyes out of your head. It's that bad. It's very bloody. This tells the story of student Nathaniel, who is studying in what I think is supposed to be Italy, and he writes to his fiancée Clara. By mistake, he actually wanted to write to his best friend, who is her brother, who I don't remember the name of. But he wrote a letter and he said he's had a terrible scare, he has met someone. He reminds him of someone he met in his childhood who he thinks is responsible for his father's death. And this person is actually the Sandman. He has he has a really, really bad recollection at the moment, and he tells of that story, he tells of that moment. And Clara, who has received the letter, she writes back and she tells him that it's just a product of his childish imagination and everything's fine. And he lets himself be calmed down and he starts to believe that it is so, but he's kind of still not satisfied, and he almost clings to this desperation and this fear to kind of fill his body or his soul with something, I guess. Events kind of tumble and it ends pretty badly for him. I won't tell more. It's a very short story. It's very readable too. At least I think in an English translation it will be, because the original German is quite, how do I say this, very 1840s. Next up, and I actually have something to hold up here, A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. I read this for a seminar, and I rated it on Goodreads 3.5 stars, I think. No, it was 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars, but I rated the edition. This is the Arnim Shakespeare edition, which I have a lot of praise for. If you want to, hear my opinions about the different Shakespeare editions and which are the best, you can go to my Shakespeare video, which is, I think, 2 weeks back. Midsummer Night's Dream. I have seen it performed many times. I've never read it in full at least. And now that I've read it, I have to say it's okay. It has some great moments, but all in all, so like story-wise, this isn't much, but I love the moments. I love the catfight between Helena and Hermia in, what was it, I think scene Act 2? Can't find it now. But I loved that. I loved the artisans. I loved the botched performance of their play within the play at the end. That was quite good. But everything else, it was just okay, I guess. It's Shakespeare. It's really nice to read, but it's not my favorite Shakespeare, I think. Next, I read Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, which is the original vampire story, not Dracula. And I've read Dracula as well. I didn't enjoy it as much. Although I think I rated it a bit higher. Both have their problems, but all in all, I think Carmilla sticks better, or has more potential for its afterlife. So this is about a young girl who is, I think she's called Clara as well. I think, I'm not quite sure. She tells in flashbacks of a summer acquaintance that she met when she was very young. I think she was 18 back then. She and her father lived very secluded in a castle in the woods of Styria, which I know very well. Styria, as she describes it, really is that picturesque. And one night they are kind of walking around and suddenly they see an accident that a carriage has, and there's this lady getting out of the carriage and her daughter being lifted out of it, and the lady says she is speeding along, she needs something done that is very secret and very urgent, and can she leave her injured daughter here and come back in 3 months and collect her. And they agree to it. They don't know anything about them, they don't even know their names. So that lady leaves her daughter there and she just disappears. This daughter, of course, turns out to be Carmilla, the vampire. But she is really friendly. She befriends the daughter of the house, and she has this almost sexual infatuation and obsession with her, which is the reason why this has been interpreted as a lesbian classic. And I enjoyed that aspect of the novel immensely. However, it ends with a kind of really overly drastic revenge fantasy acted out on Carmilla. There's still this possibility that Clara, I'm just gonna keep calling her that Clara is actually pitying what happened to Carmilla, and she's actually in love with her as well, and doesn't approve of what happened to her, how she's been treated. Yeah, this got 3 stars from me, because it's not a perfect story. It has a lot of plot holes and it's a little bit short, I think, and doesn't really develop its themes properly. But it's a nice enough story, and I think it has a lot of potential for modern reimaginings. And I'm actually going to watch tonight, I'm going to start watching the web series that has been adapted from this book. Next up is a total flop, namely Shadow of Night, which is the second part of the Old Souls trilogy. The first part was called A Discovery of Witches, and apparently it's been kind of a bestseller, which I don't understand. That one got 1.5 stars from me. Yeah. So why do I keep reading these when I know they're going to be like 1-star reads for me? And they're like quite long, they're 600 pages each. The premise is a witch who is kind of denying her own powers suddenly discovers a magical manuscript. This book is supposed to hold the creation story of the creatures. And everybody is hunting after her, and she has lost the manuscript in the meantime because it's been magically hidden. And she is being part pursued, part aided by this handsome, gorgeous, huge vampire named Matthew, with whom she of course falls in love immediately. And the second part, which starts about 40 days after they have met, sees them marrying. Yeah. Yeah, this book really wasn't destined to be liked by me. So they are married. They are, you know, meant to be together, and they actually travel to the past. They travel to 1590, I think it is, to retrieve the manuscript when it wasn't hidden yet. The thing I thought would salvage this series for me, at least a little bit, was when they travelled to 1590, I was looking forward to the depiction of Christopher Marlowe and the whole of Elizabethan England by a historian, because Deborah Harkness, who wrote these novels, is a historian actually in her daytime job, you could say, but that backfired. Christopher Marlowe is depicted as a gay demon in love with Matthew, and nobody really takes him seriously. So they know he's in love with him, but they know there's no way in hell or heaven or anywhere in between that Matthew is in love with him as well. And it's just, nobody deals with him. Like, it's really sad. And it's really depressing to see queer people depicted like that. That got a 1-star rating for me. However, the last book of the month was the Iliad. I have this to hold up. I've been reading this in the last reading vlog. I have finished this now. This is amazing. I loved this. And in the end, I actually changed my preferences. I don't think I like Hector at the end as much as I did in the beginning. I like Achilles much more. I love, like, him and Patroclus. Oh my god, so cute. And I've actually started reading The Song of Achilles, which was on my TBR. Speaking of TBR, let's see how much I managed to tick off from last month. So I wanted to read the Iliad, the Pickwick Papers, A Gentleman in Moscow, Zodiac, Mindhunter, 1984, The Song of Achilles, and Conversations with Friends. And if you remember, I did say I would be surprised if I got to all of them. And in the end, I only read the Iliad, and I'm almost done with The Song of Achilles, but that's for next month. Like this month's wrap up. Yeah, the statistics, 1 book read out of 8. But yeah. As for TBR for this month, I'm kind of reluctant to make one. I know that I will be reading The Merchant of Venice for a course, and I will be reading The Yellow Wallpaper as well. And other than that, I don't quite know. I may read some Shirley Jackson. I have started The Lottery and Other Stories, which I enjoyed tremendously. And I will have to read this month The Haunting of Hill House, because at the beginning of December I have a presentation about that. So those books are kind of on my probable TBR, assigned TBR anyway. And as for leisure reading, I have started Far From the Madding Crowd, which I am, I think, about 50% through right now. I love that, it's quite good. And I have started Wolf Hall, which I'm also about halfway through right now. That one is really good as well. I don't know what my final rating will be for either of those, but we shall see. Yeah, that's about it for today's wrap-up video. I hope it doesn't run too long, because I know I tend to ramble a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know, the whole usual procedure, and let me know in the comments what you've read this month, or if you read any of these books, because I'm really excited to talk to you about it and talk with you about it. It's so nice to be able to do that. So I hope you have a wonderful autumn time or springtime wherever you are on the globe, and I hope you have a nice day as well today and every day. Bye!